Hello, my name's Alex. A few days ago, I went to a music festival where I caught COVID-19, and I'm now self-isolating for 10 days. Every single day, throughout these 10 days, I'm going to be recording a podcast with someone interesting or cool, and I want to find out more about their passions, hobbies, and life. Hopefully, this will stop me from going insane. We'll find out together. Welcome to the RONA CHATS. Enjoy.
Episode 9. It's almost over, but despite the fact it's almost over, I'm still inside. I'm still wearing this poncho. I'm still in this chair. So it's quite boring, except to keep me company. I'm joined today by the wonderful Ant Belle. Anne is a photographing, creative human being. Once upon a time, a YouTuber-ing. Now, living it large, doing the old bar work, but still keeping creative. Ant, how are you?
Fantastic. I love the energy is just. I love the energy we've created in the studio today.
Oh yeah, it's what I do. I bring it high, and then right at the end we hit a lovely depressing tone. It's how the general structure of these podcasts has been. It's great fun.
Do you know what? It's how you keep everyone invested. You just got to punch them right in the gut before they leave. Keep them coming back.
Yeah, for sure. So, how have you found the end of the world? What because a lot happened. It's been a year, and it's been terrifying. God help us. But how have you been enjoying the end of the world?
It's been pretty bloody underwhelming. I'm not gonna lie.
You thought it'd be more characterful and with a bit more lightning.
Yeah, I thought it'd be a bit more climactic, if I'm honest. But personally, I've just sort of been mildly dissociating every 30 seconds for the last year, so it doesn't really have too much of an effect on the old psyche. Anyway, we're vibing, purely vibing. But developed a lot of paranoia, was borderline agoraphobic at one point.
Amazing.
And now we're slowly dipping our toes back into socializing, only to realize that I'm now completely inept and that the nice, tasty buffer between 23 and 25 has now completely elapsed. So life is basically just a lie. That's how I found the situation. The vocabulary, my vocabulary is severely lacking. I apologize in advance.
No, I mean, it's the weird thing I found is that a lot of people at the start of these have been like, or even before recording them, everyone's been like, oh, well, I haven't talked to anyone in a year, so how am I going to be on a podcast? But then I always open with that question and was like, oh, well, I've got a lot to say about that. I can say a lot about that.
Well, I might disappoint you on that one because I'm not sure I have too much to say about it. But it's just, it is what it is, isn't it, Alex?
It's a thing. It happened. It's a thing. It happened, and it was terrifying.
I love that we're talking about it in the past participle. It makes me feel a whole lot better about the fact that we're still in it.
Yeah.
Every time I want to feel happy, I just go to my mates like, God, COVID was mad, wasn't it? That was a time. That's definitely not happening anymore.
No. We're on to bigger disasters like the ocean on fire. We've got to stay updated.
Nah, it's not the ocean, it's Turkey that's on fire now, mate. Keep up.
Oh God, I'm so behind. Yeah, Turkey's on fire now. Yeah, so the ocean isn't on fire anymore. Germany was underwater and now Turkey's on fire.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Cool.
But climate change isn't real, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, of course, it's all a hoax.
Totally.
Bloody Bill Gates.
It's the 5G.
Yeah, exactly. Oh God, that was a weird point in the pandemic where,
the tinfoil hat QAnon people really crawled out the woodwork.
I've forgotten so much of it, but people burning down 5G towers.
Yeah, and then the gender reveal party starting a wildfire. And then a full insurrection at the US Capitol.
Yeah. I remember that day. I remember getting up and making my toast, whatever. And then I was just on my phone, just scrolling through Twitter throughout the day. And it was like, oh, there are people inside the Capitol building, extremists. Oh, but all of a sudden I was like, just kept on strong. Just another day in America. It was finally this season's got interesting. Yeah, that was a weird one.
Yeah, God, I feel like we're in the season 6 know how season 6 of every show is really, really bad? Like
Yeah, and they just throw a
Buffy,
bunch of
The
shit in there.
Natural.
It's like,
Yeah, they just
okay, well, like, oh, the Timeless Child, there you go, and all kind of stuff like that.
threw a bunch of stuff at the wall, saw what stuck, and apparently what stuck was the worst.
Yeah. Oh god. Remember at the start of the podcast, it's like, oh yeah, we start on a high note and then eventually it goes down. We've just hit rock bottom straight away.
Well, do you know what? Get it out the way. Get it straight out the way.
Oh yeah, I suppose. I mean, over to maybe be a bit more positive over the course of the pandemic, with the fact that like we haven't really had to go to like real jobs or whatever. Have you found like I guess an ability to be creative in those times, or at least do some art?
Well, Alex, I feel like I'm not going to give you the answer you want, because while most people were furloughed or isolating or on universal credit, I actually was one of the very few people who found themselves fortunate enough to be still going into their job every single day.
Oh,
So,
how lucky.
so basically, before the panorama, I was working for the BBC as a freelancer, and then I got let go. Well, I didn't get let go, like my contract just ended. And I had nothing to do. So the only places hiring were education and health. So I went into education and I worked as the teaching assistant for 9 months. But that meant that every single day I had to wake up at 4:30 and take 2 hours of buses across London to work in a school. And that was like, yeah, I still can't even believe that I actually did that for 9 months. But it wasn't even bad. In fact, I felt kind of lucky because everybody else was just so alone. And I think that because the panorama started in March and my contract ended in July, so the first 4 months of the panorama were probably the worst for me because I was just completely alone. I didn't have anyone in my flat with me, and it was like this very clinical, sterile flat in North London, and it was just like very, very isolating and very, very weird, and it definitely did a number on my head. So when I was able to, even though it was like really crap waking up that early and traveling that much in the middle of a pandemic, it was nice to actually know that I would be seeing people that day. And it was nice to, like, that was kind of what really kept me going, is the fact that every single day I would see my co-workers, I'd see the kids, and you sort of like form weird bonds with people. And it's the fact that we all sort of were in this completely new situation together, and having that experience was turned out to be like invaluable. Like, just you learn so much about just like working alongside people. So I didn't actually manage to do anything creative. I beat myself up a lot because for years I'd been like, oh god, if I only had some time to do something creative, to refocus my energy. And then I had the time and I couldn't do anything. Like, I mean, I took videos of myself like every single day in the pandemic, sort of like a ship's logbook. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to make them into a film, because what I tend to do, or what I had done, was like I would make like year films, kind of like Adrian Bliss did, but obviously with my own twist on them. And I tried to do 2020 and I just couldn't do it. I just could not look back at it. Like, so much of, like, when you're completely by yourself, your brain goes to some really messed up places. Like Bo Burnham's Inside showed us that. And like, I just can't rewatch that footage of myself because I don't really like identify with the version of myself that was documented over the course of that year. So I actually didn't do anything creative, because in order to be creative, you have to be like, it requires a degree of introspection, which, if I'm honest, I'm just a little bit too scared to do. Like, I'm not like emotionally stable enough to like mentally detach myself from the version of myself that I was when I was completely alone. So I've been back into creative stuff recently. So I've started working on film sets in the last few months, which has been really good. I'm getting back into portrait work slowly. I did a fashion show last week, and before that I did Trans Pride. I haven't got back into 35mm film yet, but that's because my cameras need servicing and I just haven't found the right place to do it, because finding a place that services Minoltas is apparently impossible, which sucks. But it's on its way, but I'm not rushing it. I'm not rushing it at all, but I'm aware that some healing needs to happen before I'm actually like able to do the work that I feel most comfortable doing, or the work that I feel will be best, the work I feel I'll do best at.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if it makes you feel any better, even like in isolation myself, being like, oh, I want to create, but I was just kind of like, there's no inspiration whatsoever. I
Literally, I was
like
just like,
four walls aren't very creative.
yeah.
But
I felt like,
apparently to Bo Burnham they are.
ugh. No, do you know what? I don't know if you felt this, but like being completely by myself day in, day out in a very like sterile environment, I literally felt like the walls were screaming at me. Like the silence was so loud. It literally felt so loud. And I was like, this is crazy because it was completely silent. I don't know if you felt this, but at the beginning of the pandemic, right when no one had any idea what was going to happen, it was like the first month, literally London's a very noisy place. It's very, very difficult to be quiet in London.
Yeah.
And I live right next to a train track and I live right next to a busy high street, and everything was just silent. And literally all you could hear were ambulances whizzing past, and you just see them going up and down the street. And that was it. That was like the only sign of life. And it was so weird. Very, very
I totally
strange.
feel that. I mean, my flat was on the main road, and it was a tiny flat, and I mean, my road was kind of like the main road that kind of like the lifeblood of West London. So if you wanted to get anywhere in West London, you'd use that road.
Same with my road into Central from North.
Yeah, so so it was, yeah, I totally feel that. It was just so weird walking about because, say, if I was like in my hometown, if I was isolating there, then it's quiet there. So it wouldn't have been out of the ordinary to see it quiet. But it was the fact that
Nah, it was
London
messed
was
up.
just empty and you didn't see anyone. And yeah, I had the exact same thing where it was only ambulances. And I remember looking outside, and like there was a period where I would either see people going to the shops or police officers. Those are the only two people I'd see going outside.
That's crazy. Oh my God. So I didn't do any creative stuff,
Yeah, you didn't.
basically. I didn't
Yeah,
do anything. And obviously everybody attaches, obviously you shouldn't. And it's taken a while to like unpack like my creative identity from my output, because like if you've done like any sort of creative work, you'll understand that it's like a very sort of toxic mindset to like equate your productivity to your value, or like your potential and stuff like that. So I had a bit of a time, trying not to feel ashamed for not doing any work or doing any creative stuff, because it wasn't really a rest. It wasn't like an opportunity. I feel like some people were like, oh yeah, this is a great opportunity to make stuff. And everybody else was like, I am far too depressed right now, babe. Like, it's just not happening. And I feel like I always do my best work when I'm supposed to be doing something else. Like I always
yeah.
get my best ideas when I'm like meant to be something else. And I'll be like, oh wait, but this is brilliant. I've got to write it down so I remember it later. That's where all my best ideas come. And just having too much space and too much time to think, I was just like completely dumbstruck.
I guess briefly on that point, do you think that because I definitely think that rings true with me where I like the times I want to be the creative most is when the times I can't afford to be creative.
Mm.
When I've got stack piles of work. I mean, I don't know. Like, do you at least outside of the context of the pandemic, do you find that you would take those creative opportunities when life is so crazily busy and be able to kind of do something good with that?
I think that I work best with less resources. So part of the best bit about being creative for me is being like a problem solver or being innovative. So like I did YouTube for a while, and I think the reason I enjoyed it so much was that it was an opportunity to escape from my responsibilities. And because I had like very little resources and very little funding, I say funding, I had like a crap camera. Like, no, to this day, I just use like my phone and a stack of books as a tripod. But because of that, there was no pressure whatsoever on myself to like up the production value or up the scale, and not having to worry about that is actually what made it good and what made it better.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now I feel like, oh well, it's got to be of a certain standard, it's got to match the industry standards, it's got to be the best thing I can possibly produce at this moment because I have like more knowledge about how to produce it. But yeah, no, everything is more fun when you're not supposed to be doing it. And it motivates you more to actually do it because it's like procrastinating what you're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot the question. What was the question?
Doesn't really matter, does it? No.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, are you creative in times you're not meant to be? Which
Yeah.
I think you've answered.
But yeah, the less resources, the better. Like, I feel like if someone goes, "Oh, make something about this," and I'm like, if you make something with like no resources, like terrible materials, no time, and you just throw something together, I think that's ultimately more fun
mm,
and more creative than having something be in the works for ages. Because I can't stand long projects. Give me a
yeah,
deadline for a long project, and I can't deal with it. If you tell me you need to shoot a video in 24 hours, I'll be like, sick, let's do it.
yeah. Well, I mean, part of the reason why I really enjoy this podcast is the fact that it's so short in terms of, I record it in a day, then the next day it goes up. And so
Yes,
I can't
that's what.
afford to like slack or go, well, I'm going to change some bits about it. And on the point where it's like, it's fun, just kind of like doing it with less resources. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a degree in music technology, yet I'm still recording this podcast on a Zoom call with with a microphone that's crap out of my headphones. And I get that it's kind of it's fun to just
Well, you say it's crap, but it's probably the most accessible thing to
mm,
people. Like, people record all sorts of stuff on their mics. Like, people record demos on their Apple microphones. Like, it's not so, like, we might think that stuff is terrible, but like, if it's the easiest point of contact for people, then it's the most accessible.
yeah.
It's the most relatable.
That was one thing I really liked about Vine. I'm getting on a bit of tangent, but that's one thing I really
Oh no,
liked
I
about Vine,
love Vine. I
about
feel like,
how it was
yeah,
everybody. And I think, with TikTok being quote the new Vine, I don't really think it is, but
it's not the
with
new Vine.
no,
It's not.
exactly. But
It's
like,
completely different.
what I liked about it is that every single person had the same shitty camera, had the same
Hmm.
7 seconds, and there was nothing else about it. It was just right. We're giving you this now, go. And that's something how it was a completely level playing field. Obviously, if you're
Mm.
a celebrity, we're going to get some views, but like for everyone who got famous or like for success from that app, it was purely because like because they were making something good, no other reason.
Yeah, exactly. But like, that's the best way though. It's like, give everyone a bunch of stuff and see what they do with it. I think
Mm,
that's one of my favorite formats of doing something. Just see what happens. And that's what YouTube like used to be back in the day, because everyone just sort of had access to the same shitty equipment. And then
yeah.
around like 2014 to 2016, like all the YouTubers started getting hella famous. They started getting brand deals. VidCon blew up, and like suddenly
Mm.
YouTube celebrities were born, and they all started hiring editors and getting way better equipment and
And you'd
doing
see them on
collabs across the
billboards.
country, sticking on billboards, getting heavyweight titles, starting music careers. Like, it's just, oh, don't, capitalism ruins the things we love. Like,
Yeah. But that period of YouTube from like 2011 to 2014, oh, that was a beautiful time to be on the internet.
mate, it was like beautiful, but also deeply fucked. Like, if you look
Oh
back
yeah.
at some of the content that was made, like just the sheer scale of like how offensive some of it was. Like, Shane
Mm.
Dawson literally went in blackface. Like, anyone remember that? And like, it was just, that time was just wild. It was honestly wild. Like, the fact that David Walliams, he's not on YouTube, but like the fact that David Walliams is like a children's author after he's literally done some of the most offensive comedy on British
Mm.
television in the modern age,
Yeah,
I would say.
yeah.
It's like that shit is mental to me. Like, people literally talk about canceling and stuff, but people fully have careers that live longer because everyone just sort of like culturally forgets that they did that. So
Hmm.
like, I don't know, when people talk about YouTube and how things change, I just like, yeah, it was like a great time. It was a great time to like sort of be excited about YouTube, but that's because it was like a very small community based thing, and it
Yeah.
sort of morphed into this like horrible cesspit over time.
Yeah.
Hence
Well,
why
I guess it became another media conglomerate in a way.
oh yeah, YouTube getting bought by Google was like a huge catalyst for that, and like AdWords and ads. It's the same conversation. Loads of people have had it. I'm not going to have it again. But like,
Yeah.
we were talking about golden age of YouTube, everyone having the same access to the same crappy equipment. You don't need a big production value to be able to have fun with something.
Hmm. Yeah. No, of course. Like, also, if you look back at, I mean, even the world of music, um, like some of the like the weirdest and most wonderful and wacky music has been made on a crappy laptop with a 25 quid MIDI keyboard, and it's worked. Like in a way, the kind of like on the internet with creativity, the that major accessibility, but also advancements in kind of just tech on your laptop has meant that we've gotten some really amazing things out of people who 10 years ago would never have seen the light of day. Like, all right, Lil Nas X, for example, I love him,
I adore Lil Nas.
but
You know, apparently, like,
he wouldn't have, like, 10 years ago, like that wouldn't have happened. But I just love the fact that that can happen now.
what? Okay, 2 points.
Go for it.
First point, no, 3 points. First
Go for
point
it.
is Lil Nas, the kiss is silent, and he says it's for the gays. Secondly, some of the most beautiful songs ever written were recorded on mono, recorded on analog. Like,
Yeah.
it adds to it adds to the actual song, the fact that it's recorded on terrible equipment. I say terrible, for the time it was incredibly advanced, but obviously our technology far surpasses it. But it still adds to the sort of aura. Like, if the Beatles had recorded Abbey Road on like modern equipment, like, how would it sound? Would we even like it? Like, would it be the same?
Yeah.
Not because of the equipment, but like because of the sort of mood. But also the third thing, which if I'm very lucky, I'll be able to remember it. It's rats. I forgot what I was going to say. This happens all the time. It was to do with So I really want to have this conversation with you. Actually,
Go for it.
2000. You talked about Lil Nas X. Would he have been able to make it 10 years ago? Right. Hot take. I think that some of the music that was produced at the end of the noughties, beginning of the tens, is some of the best pop music that's ever been written. Like, obviously the 80s were amazing, but
Yeah.
like there was EDM, there was emo, there was
Lady
Kesha,
Gaga.
Timbaland, Lady Gaga, R&B was really good. Like, it was just like all the music this today. It's not bad, but I think that modern pop music is just so prescribed and just so boring and dull and samey. Like, it's almost formulaic and it's predictable and it's not exciting anymore. And like, while you've got like, I don't think that Dua Lipa is necessarily bad, but like, I would never get as excited about a Dua Lipa song as I would have been about a Kesha song in like 2010. And I feel like the kinds of music that was produced genre wise then was all very different and very eclectic, but all just quite successful.
I mean,
whereas now I feel like it's just so like prescribed and boring, and maybe I'm just getting old, maybe it's still good, but I think that Lil Nas X is very much it's a response to that. Like, Lil Nas X doesn't really stay in genres. Like, he's done country, but he's also done rap, and he's like going completely against a lot of the stereotypes found in rap, and like overtly addressing homophobia and religious themes in his music. Like, you wouldn't have found something that complex, I think. No, you probably would have. I just probably wouldn't have known about it, in fairness, without like TikTok and stuff.
but I don't think
But
it would ever been that, I guess, overly visible.
Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't have the visibility that it does. So my question slash thought for you is, do you think that pop music back then, in like 2010, 2011, like 2009, why do you think it was more eclectic and different, and like it just seemed more interesting, whereas now the music that we have seems to become successful because it's being shared around organically by people on the internet, not because of sort of record labels and producers? I feel like sharing on the internet had less of an effect on what music was successful back then, but for some reason it was better.
Yeah,
In my opinion, this is just an opinion. I'm probably wrong to a lot of people.
I think so. Back then we didn't have streaming. It was all iTunes downloading and CDs.
LimeWire, baby.
Yeah, but which meant that there was a ton of music going around. Not a ton of money going around, because it wasn't like the golden age of the 80s where like people would
That was radio play, right?
Yeah, where in the 80s it was radio play and tickets. And basically, there was just a stupid amount of money, and everyone and their mum in the music industry was on cocaine because there was just so much money that they were like, "Well, what are we to do with all this money? It's like we've spent it all. Well, what else can we do? We'll spend it on drugs." That was how the 80s worked, I think. And so,
If you're from the 80s, let us know in the
yeah,
comments.
please do. But it got to I think the early noughties, early tens with yeah, I think because there was still money going around, and we and yeah, we I think I watched a really good video about this recently, but how I guess during that time we were really obsessed about the future. So, case in point, look at like the
Yeah.
Black Eyed Peas, who
I was
um,
literally going to
in
talk
in
about
the
Black Eyed Peas.
in like the super early noughties, they kept quite like kind of pop hip hop, but they stayed quite
Yeah, like true to
cool.
their roots, basically.
Yeah,
And then they
and
got really futuristic.
yeah, and then 2010 came along, and it was like, well, I'm from the future. And Lady Gaga, who was plotting around in like super minimalist kind of like lit up spaces as if she's in Tron. It felt kind of futuristic, like everyone was
She
hyping
also wore the meat
themselves up.
suit.
Yeah, exactly. It was a really
There was
weird
like a
thing.
there was like retrofuturism as well, because there was a huge amount of 80s revival in style, and the 80s were like super obsessed with the future and modernism and stuff like that. Well, not modernism, because modernism is different, but like, I don't know, like I feel like Boom Boom Pow by Black Eyed Peas and I Got a Feeling would not happen in this climate. Like you couldn't do
No.
it. It wouldn't be half, but all of that music still stands up. Like it's fucking brilliant. Whereas
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the music that's been made, that's been like commercially successful, like, and I couldn't tell you a single one of like the number ones recently that I've genuinely been like, this is an incredible song.
Yeah.
Whereas back then they were churning out the hits.
And
They were
what
churning them
the funny
out.
thing is that like we could go to a club that would only like right now we could go to a club that would only play hits from 2008 to 2012, and we would know every single song, and we would know all the lyrics, which is kind of,
Exactly. It
it's weird how
slaps.
some of those songs I haven't listened to in 10 years, but I know all the lyrics. It's so
I have
weird.
like a memory bank where all of my A levels knowledge was supposed to go, and it's literally just Black Eyed Peas lyrics. Like, that's it.
Oh,
It's all just Sean Paul. It's all just Neo. Like that's all that's there.
oh God, yeah,
But yeah, that
I know
music
what you mean.
slaps.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
It's
as you said,
irreplicable.
it might. I mean, it could be the benefit of hindsight. Maybe this generation of like 16 to 18-year-olds are going to have the same thing with music now, where they'll get to our age and they'll be like, oh yeah, because like
Hang
Billie
on.
Eilish back in the day, blah blah blah. But
Nah, I'm sorry. I think the Billie Eilish has passed her prime. Like 2019 was her year. 2019 was Billie Eilish's year, and now I'm not really feeling all of the stuff that she's making. I feel like
I think it's
it's just so
because like the
transparent.
media blew her up just so much.
Exactly. It was like unhealthy as hell, and we all watched her on those God Vanity Fair interviews, like literally go through her adolescence in the limelight in
Yeah.
front of everyone, and it just seems so unhealthy. And I feel like record labels are just throwing money at Spotify and throwing money at Apple Music, like do all these deals, have all of these God, what are they called? Oh, not like collaborations, but like highlights, like special
Mm,
interviews and features. And it's like, but why? Like, because the music industry wants us to like them. It's not to say that they're not worth liking. Like, I love Billie Eilish's first album, but I feel like now the music industry is like basically chucking money and opportunities at these artists without giving people a chance to genuinely connect with the music.
and at the same time, while they continually push money at the biggest artists, it leaves the smaller artists literally like having to like get second jobs, despite the fact that they could be getting a million plays, but like they get barely any money from it. It's
Exactly.
so
Streaming is
horrible
so
to
awful for
yeah.
musicians.
It, it's so bad. Like because I mean, there are some bands who are touring who go back 20, 25 years. If they had that level of success, will they be in a lovely house with a stable income and they'd be living a decent life. But now it's like, oh no, I'm still really struggling to pay the rent, and I'm eating pot noodles. It's like, what is going on?
So how do you see this progressing then? Because if musicians can't even afford to do well no matter how successful they get, like what's going to happen to the music industry? Like, is there going to be like a class divide within the music industry?
Well, I think
is there a class divide within the music industry?
I think there is. I I think right now there is a major kind of like I know separation. Before it's weird because on one hand, there's never been a better time to get into music because of the accessibility of being able to create a song and just upload it, and who knows, you can upload it on your SoundCloud or upload to Spotify, and it could work out really well with playlisting. Case in point, Little Nas. But
yeah,
at the same time, if you want kind of like that organic growth that has been prevalent throughout the whole of modern pop music, unless you're big, you will really struggle to see the money, see the stability, and also see a stable fan base. I think that a lot of bands who are kind of growing, they need to work twice as hard because because I've been working in live music and I see kind of different sized bands that play different sized concert halls and all of that. I've noticed more than I thought about which bands are coming up and which ones are slowly dying yet don't want to admit it, and it's been really interesting to see that.
Can you like see this viscerally in the crowd at their gigs?
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting.
Yeah, I can say it. The Hunter are dead.
Oh, no, but there was a point where they were so good.
Yeah,
like everyone was talking about them. I think it was like 2015, 2016. Never Enough is still a bop, but I don't care about them anymore.
They couldn't sell out Alexandra Palace, and they had to downgrade to Brixton Academy.
Shit, that's embarrassing. But also, okay, so just to make a point, I'm looking at all the 2021 number ones, right? So you've got Olivia Rodrigo, Good For You, which is like, it's a good song, but it's not like amazing. Call Me By Your Name is of absolute bop. Olivia Rodrigo, again, Driver's License. That was 9 weeks at number one. I can categorically say that song is so painfully average. I'm just like,
I haven't heard it in full. I haven't even heard it in full. And it's not, obviously, it's not like the two of us determine which music is worth listening to. It isn't?
But like, no, but let's look at 2010. What are the number ones in 2010? The Time by Black Eyed Peas. Only Girl in the World by Rihanna. Forget You by CeeLo Green. Just the Way You Are by Bruno Mars.
I know every single one.
Dynamite by Tayo Cruz.
I know the lyrics to every single one.
Deep. Club Can't Handle Me by Flo Rida. Neo, Beautiful Monster. We Know Speak Americano. Airplanes by B.O.B. and Hayley Williams.
We Know Speak Americano shook the world. Like
that was an
that song
and Alex,
shook everything.
Every single one of these songs was at number one for what, like 3 weeks maximum. There is not a single song that was at number one for more than 3 weeks. Whereas in 2020, look, so you've got Positions by Ariana Grande was number one for 6 weeks. And this year, Olivia Rodrigo was number one for 9 weeks. Shit's getting boring. Like,
yeah, because you're lacking variety.
Alex, Owl City Fireflies came out in 2010.
That's 11 years ago.
Oh my god. Bad Romance, Replay, OMG by Usher.
Yeah.
Dirty. Oh my god, Dizzy Rascal.
Dizzy Rascal, man. Oh, it was.
No, but do you know what I mean? Like,
time to be alive, but I loved it. Like, because all right, the music was so cheesy and it was so goofy and weird, but
yeah, but no one cared. Exactly. No one was like as caught up in their own image as they are now.
Yeah, there was no kind of pretext of like, it was like there were no rules in a way. It was like, we're going to do this.
There were no rules.
It's going to be full.
There was no social media. There was no social media. Like, if someone took a video of you at a party, the only way that you would see it is if you like went round to their house, they took the memory card out of their shitty little point and shoot and played it on their 480p pixel screen to show you. Like, whereas now someone can literally take a 10-second video, put it on YouTube, and millions of people will see it in what, like 2 minutes if it goes viral.
And it'll be in 4K and
exactly in 4K on blast.
I remember one of the first festivals I played. I was super young, but like the only snippet I've got of that is footage that lasts about 20 seconds, and it's about 360p. You can't like, unless you told someone what you were watching, you wouldn't be able to make it out. Genuinely, it's just a bunch of pixels, and I almost miss that, where it's like, where
there's freedom there.
Yeah, it like that time of storing video. It was, I don't know, there's something interesting about the way we all did that.
It's the intent behind it. It's like the lack of immediacy and consumption meant that you had to go away and do something with it. It's like the difference between posting a photo on Instagram and putting a photo in an album. Do you know what I mean? The intent behind the actual taking of the image, our photographer's coming out. The intent behind the actual taking of the image affects the kind of image that you're taking. Yeah. And I feel like party culture now is very, very different to how it was back then, and I don't think it will ever be the same as it was back then. And I feel like it was even more different before we were, you know, born in like the 80s and the 90s and stuff.
Yeah, speaking of, one thing I do miss about party culture, and one thing these kids will quite frankly missing out on, was doing all the photos and everyone doing this.
No. Now, for me, it's the one you get the.
oh yeah.
Rar XD. Rar means I love you in dinosaur. Absolute curse. No, but they'll never know about like Bieber and MySpace either. I heard a very interesting comment the other day. I didn't hear it the other day. It's something that I've known for a while. But it's, instead of users being able to customize interfaces, we now have the same interface, but we are the content now. So instead of being able to like have a Tumblr or a MySpace or a Bebo or a Pixo, and you can customate it and code it with whatever you wanted, now we have, everyone has the same thing. Everyone has Instagram and Snapchat and Twitter, but we sort of color in those platforms. The users are the content, like you are the online experience, and sort of your personality becomes the customization of it. Yeah, so people have to end up cultivating these online personas that are completely unsustainable in real life. But it's why it's created a really interesting advent in like fashion and clothing, I think. Because now if you've got like a really cool style Instagram, that is the selling point. Like you are the selling point. Whereas before, if you were able to code, then you had a really sick Tumblr. Like that was it. I know so many people that got started in coding just from designing Tumblr themes.
Yeah. You can almost pinpoint that moment where it switched, because I remember when you could
2017, 2018.
No, I think a bit before that, because I remember when you could have backgrounds on YouTube, where you could have like
what?
That
was before my time.
Oh, there you go. Well, yeah, you used to be able on YouTube to, on your channel page, you had complete control over how it looked. You could use a color scheme, a background, all of that. So as we begin to wrap this up, and we've looked heavily into the past and nostalgia, which has been a nice trip down memory lane, but I've got a question for you. Are we all going to be okay? It's been a time. Are we going to be okay? Well, what's going to happen?
Well, we haven't really got much of a choice, have we, babe? Like, what's the alternative apart from being okay? What's the alternative? Just like collapse? Like, nah, dude, there's so many like little slivers of joy to be found. And I think that we've just got to, you know, go balls to the wall, really. Like, what much have we got left to lose? Not very much. I mean, I don't know if we're going to be okay, but we're going to be.
We will exist.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and if you're going to exist, then you might as well make it worthwhile. I think a lot of people after the panorama, or coming to the end of the panorama, hopefully, have a newfound perspective that they were kind of wasting their life before. And introspective will kind of do that. Like, that's why I'm going back into bar work and trying to make it in the film industry, because even if it doesn't pan out, at least I'll have given it a shot. So we're gonna be fine because we have no choice to be. And I think that a lot of people are just gonna make it worth all of the isolation. That we know how valuable time is and how valuable socializing is now. So everyone's going to be seizing whatever opportunity they can. So it's definitely going to be a ride. It's going to be interesting.
Isn't it just? Yeah.
Might not be okay, but it's definitely not going to be boring.
Yeah, they'll keep us entertained.
Tell me about it.
Well, thank you very much for coming and chatting to me. It's a pleasure as always.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's an honor. It's an absolute honor. Is there anything you wish to plug? Now is your time.
Okay.
Where can the lovely people find you?
So you can find me on www.antbelle.com. I have a contact form in my bio if anyone would like to book me for any second assistant camera trainee, spark trainee, or just any sort of film trainee role. I'm also available for freelance creative portrait services, for corporate photography, for events photography. I'm also available on Instagram at xntwxrlb, but I take sporadic Instagram breaks now and again. And I'm like in the middle of trying to stage a YouTube comeback, but if I could just get this bloomin' edit done, that would be fantastic. So yeah, find me there. I will most likely be not doing anything and trying to live a life off social media.
Well, you can find all of that in the description. Yeah, episode 9 of the RONA Chats, so we're nearly done with this and I'm nearly free, but we have a wonderful guest tomorrow, so please stay tuned for that. And feel free to check out all the other episodes where we've got wonderful people such as Hannah Freeman, who featured on Eyes. We've got Leon Parsons. We've got a multitude of guests. So please stay tuned and check out the past episodes. Playlist in the description. So thank you very much for coming along for the ride. This has been the RONA Chats. I'll see you tomorrow.
I want to break free.